Hey traders, Raghi here. I'm going to walk you through today's day trade in the Sector Secrets Mastery. It was in the NQ. You know, it's about quality, not quantity. And while there were obviously a lot of movement, this was what I liked the best. I wanted to find a good, solid setup, manage risk, manage reward, and I'm going to walk you through what we did. So first off, you can see at 9:38, pretty early on in the session, we pinpointed, hey, it's time to look for some QQQ buys by watching the NQ futures. Now, if you're trading QQQ by looking at NQ, you're looking at a 23-hour version of the NASDAQ versus a 9:30 to 4 o'clock version of the NASDAQ. And by having all that data that precedes the bell, you've got volume levels. Your indicators are already crunching data. You've got overnight high lows. There's a lot more information I'm going to glean about the NASDAQ by looking at the NQ and trading the QQQ. And also, if you're trading futures, well, of course, you're looking at the NQ or the MNQ. So there's three ways, really, you can look at this trade. And the way that we structure the setups in the mastery, whether you're an ETF trader or whether you're a NASDAQ futures trader, both of those could be traded with the information in the notes here. So this was what I call a very aggro trade, which is to say that I want to reduce position size and I want to tighten the stop. That's exactly what we did. We also knew there was a 10 o'clock hot zone. The University of Michigan data was coming out, so we were in a little bit of a time crunch knowing that that data could present a lot of volatility. So first things first, we bought these between $1.30 and $1.35 once they got to our aggro trigger. We also had a moderate trigger there as well. So that's what we wait for to be reached so I can buy the QQQ, or you could place a limit order to buy on the NASDAQ micro or mini. I will say this, and I'm going to do a little bit of armchair quarterbacking in this video. My first target was probably a little too close. I will say my first target was likely just a little bit too close, and mostly because it's choppy, price action's been unpredictable and meandering. I'm glad we scaled out, but this was at about $1.65 on the scale out. Now, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have been a little bit more patient with the scale out, and instead of going with this more, this closer 24.33, I would have gone with this Darvis resistance up in here. This, in fact, was the second target. So this was the first target. This, of course, was our entry down in here. And in an ideal world, looking at this again, this really should have been my first target. That was a reasonable place to go. Price had been there before, and it would have done something really important. So when we hit the first target, about $1.65, second target was about $1.85. But had I waited for the very reachable T2, this is what it would have happened for the rest of the day, and it would have made a pretty big difference. So successful trade. I'm not taking anything away from that, from top to bottom, about 50 cents per contract for a contract that cost 130 bucks. Not a bad return in, gosh, what about not even 25 minutes. However, by being really aggressive with the T1, and I caution people from being overly aggressive, again, arguably I was today, by doing that, I moved to a break-even stop quicker, which really didn't pose a problem. But what happened is I had to realize a profit here at T2 because that was the high, and it makes sense to remember that that high is probably a high for a reason. There's selling pressure that could be waiting up here. But had I waited for this to be T1, then we would have moved to break even, and then this noise in here would not have stopped me out for a gain as a trailing stop, or a tightened stop as I like to call it. So had I been more ambitious with a T2, all this noise would have just been risk on unrealized profit, and then we would have enjoyed a very nice surge higher. Instead, by being really aggressive with that first target, we got stopped out, not for a loss, but stopped out in terms of locking in profit. So instead of going from $1.35 to $1.65 to $1.85, I went from $1.35 to $1.65 to $1.85 to $1.65 close. So it was still a profitable exit. Had I not done that, I mean, obviously you can see what's happened in the interim. And all of that, and the reason I'm sort of micromanaging or kind of doing a really tough Monday morning quarterback on my own trade is the reason that I'm not in this trade right now wasn't that I wasn't risking enough. That's silly. It wasn't that I wasn't taking profit along the way. That's not it either. I took profit too quickly. And you might say, Rod, can you do such a thing? Yes, you really can. Because we had this high up in here, because we had the Darvis, this would have been an ideal zone for that first target, which means we still got in for about $1.35. We still got out for about $1.85. But all this would have left me with a break-even stop loss, which was never touched, right? And then we would have been able to take the rest of the ride higher. So today, I'm sort of breaking this down in a way that I could have done this better. I think that's my job. I don't mind to say we took profit. That's great. But what could I have done better? And what could I teach you to consider? And in this case, I was way too conservative, way too tight about that first target. And it didn't cost me money. It cost me profit. It didn't cause a loss. It just caused me kind of an opportunity. So think about that the next time you're looking at your charts. You see a meandering market. You see a pre-market high that isn't too far away. That can be a really great target. Still a great morning. A very scalable, inexpensive, and liquid futures contracts that small accounts can take advantage of, and large accounts. This is the kind of stuff we look for every single day. And if there's times that I can do it better, I'm absolutely going to teach you in these videos because, well, I think every teacher wants their students to be ultimately even better than they were. So have a wonderful weekend. I'll keep up with these videos. If you like them, let me know. Smash that like button, leave me a comment, and let me know that, I'm happy to keep doing these videos after our morning sessions in the Sector Secrets Mastery. And I'll see you in the next update.